All right, everybody, if we could take our seats, we'll get started here in just a
Buenos
minute.
días. ¿Me escuchan? Sí. Buenos días, and thank you all for coming.
Well, thank you, Isis. Good morning, everyone. Buenos dias. My name is Steve Grove, and I'm the Commissioner of the Department of Employment and Economic Development. And we're thrilled to have you with us today for this important conversation on the Office of... What's that?
You want me to translate?
Maybe wait till I finish a sentence or two. So we're thrilled to have you here today for an important conversation on the Office of New Americans, something we think is a big priority for state government right now. And I'm joined by some amazing guests who are going to have that conversation with us.
Buenos días. El comisionado está muy emocionado de estar aquí compartiendo con ustedes este momento tan importante y en particular está muy emocionado en compartir la idea de tener una oficina para inmigrantes nuevos.
But before we begin the conversation, we want to recognize a very important leader that Mercado Central has had for many years, Doña Queta, who passed away unexpectedly on Monday. And she was really the heart and soul of this place. I'm told she's called the Queen of Juices. She was both an entrepreneur here, but also a leader who really founded the Mercado. And so before we begin, we wanted to take a moment of silence just to recognize Doña Queta, her leadership, and her memory.
Vamos a tener un momento de silencio para reconocer a Doña Queta, que fue una gran líder de esta comunidad. Ella fue conocida como la reina de los jugos. Ella falleció el lunes de esta semana y vamos a tener un momento de silencio en su honor.
Well, gracias. I know we have the family of Doña Queta here this morning. Her daughter is with us, and we just ask you to come and maybe say a few words about your mother on this week in which we remember her life. Would you like to come up here? And
La hija de Doña Queta está aquí con nosotros y va a decir unas palabras.
Bueno, de parte de mi madre, la señora Enriqueta Cruz, queremos agradecer por este reconocimiento que tienen aquí. La verdad, no esperábamos o no conocíamos la magnitud de lo que ella había hecho. Y estamos muy agradecidos con todos ustedes por estar aquí en este momento, ayudándonos y dándonos apoyo y sobre todo reconociendo el gran esfuerzo y lo que ella fue para la comunidad y para nosotros como madre y como parte de la sociedad. Muchas gracias.
Doña Queta's daughter is very thankful for everybody to be here, and she was not aware of the magnitude of the work of her mother. And she's very grateful that she's been recognized for her great work.
thank you. Thank you very much. Well, I know Doña Queta helped build this amazing center that we are in today, and she would want us to continue and have a conversation here about the importance of immigrants to our economy, which is why we're here today. This is a chance for us to lift up the immigrant community here in Minnesota, and particularly in Mercado Central, a place that has been through quite a bit over the past couple of years. The Lieutenant Governor and the Governor and myself have been here several times over the past couple of years in the wakes of certainly the destruction and that civil unrest that followed the murder of George Floyd. But the Mercado has come back, and you can see it here. There's more momentum. Businesses are up and running. The things that were destroyed have been rebuilt. We at our agency have been proud to be a part of that rebuilding process. We think that's our responsibility, frankly, to take care of communities when they face crisis. And through a couple of different grants, we're able to bring some money in here to help the business owners here weather really one of the most difficult times that our economy has faced in the past generation. But this country and this state and certainly this city have really been built on the backs of immigrant entrepreneurs. This is the story of America. It's the story of Minnesota. When you look at the labor force in Minnesota, 10% of the workers in Minnesota were born outside of the country. And we have seen over the past several years an increase of about 100,000 new Americans to our state. It's really the only reason that Minnesota is growing, is immigrant entrepreneurs. They are the lifeblood and foundation of Minnesota's economy. I say this as someone who is married to a child of immigrants. My in-laws came from Thailand about 50 years ago to Chicago, and like so many immigrants that came to Minnesota, the first thing they did was start something new. They started a chiropractic business in Chicago and then in San Diego. And I think it's that scrappiness, that entrepreneurialism, that drive, that grit that immigrants have that make this group of Minnesotans so important to our economy.
El comisionado dice que este es un tiempo muy importante después de la pandemia. Es muy importante apoyar a los pequeños negocios. Los inmigrantes son una parte fundamental de la economía de Minnesota. El 10% de la economía de Minnesota está representada por inmigrantes y refugiados. Él mismo está casado con una inmigrante from Thailand, de Tailandia. Ellos comenzaron un negocio de quiroprácticos y eso es un ejemplo de que los inmigrantes contribuyen a la economía de Minnesota.
It's hard to imagine the Minnesota economy without immigrants. Imagine where we would be if we hadn't had people coming in from outside the country to build businesses like you see here at the market. It really is the future of Minnesota's growth and our economy. And the reason we're here today is we want to talk about how we can accelerate that trend and make sure that immigrant entrepreneurs, immigrant workers can take advantage of the services that state government offers to grow our economy.
Es importante que los negocios se aprovechen, tomen ventaja de los servicios que el gobierno de Minnesota ofrece.
So we're joined by an amazing panel today of experts who I'll introduce to you in a moment. But first, I want to turn over to my colleague at our department, Assistant Commissioner Anissa Haji-Mumin, an immigrant herself, an entrepreneur, a government leader, who for the last couple of years has incubated a new effort at our department called the Office of New Americans. And this is an office that focuses on building a bridge between government and immigrant communities to make sure that we are thriving together.
Ahora la asistente de comisionado va a dirigir unas palabras. Ella es inmigrante, ella misma, y también ella tiene una iniciativa de fundar una oficina para nuevos inmigrantes, para nuevos americanos.
So we're honored to have Anissa here today, and Anissa, I'll turn it over to you to offer some thoughts on the office.
Thank you, Commissioner. And thank you so much for being here. Also, thank you, Mario Espinosa and Maureen Ramirez, who really organized this for us. I began my role in 2020 or summer 2020 because the state of this agency wanted to establish an office that serves immigrants and refugees. And we know that many immigrants and refugees, when they come here, they don't know where to go to seek benefits. If they want to establish businesses, what kind of language that will require in terms of materials being translated. And for that matter, is the reason this office was established.
Anissa comenzó su trabajo aquí porque ella considera que los inmigrantes cuando llegan y quieren tener un negocio no saben por dónde comenzar, no saben los requerimientos legales. Por eso para ella es importante fundar esta oficina.
Department of Employment and Economic Development is the state's primary economic development agency responsible for supporting businesses to grow and expand, and also responsible for strategies that train workers and help them move into good jobs.
El departamento tiene la misión de apoyar a los negocios y también de apoyar entrenamiento de los trabajadores.
So my role as the Assistant Commissioner was to work with all state agencies to better coordinate efforts for new Americans and to focus especially on employment and business strategies.
Su papel se está enfocando en empleo y estrategias para los negocios.
So I hit the ground running to connect small business owners to COVID relief grants in summer of 2020.
Ella comenzó su trabajo en el verano del año 2020 ayudando a los negocios a obtener subsidios para apoyo durante la pandemia de COVID.
And collaborating and partnering with Maureen Ramirez's Office of Economic Opportunity at DEED, immediately we discovered that immigrants could not apply for small business relief grants.
Ella se dio cuenta que los pequeños negocios tenían problemas para aplicar a los subsidios de apoyo para la pandemia de COVID.
Many small businesses owned and operated by immigrants and refugees were not registered with the Secretary of State office.
Pequeños negocios de inmigrantes no estaban registrados con la oficina de la Secretaría del Estado.
And in order to qualify for the grants, it was legal requirement that they would have to be in good standing with the office.
Y para obtener estos subsidios, los negocios tenían que cumplir con este requisito que ellos no sabían, no tenían conocimiento.
So we had partnered with the Secretary of State office to determine how could these small business owners access these grants to be able to renew their businesses and to also have materials available which they translated into Somali, Hmong, and Spanish.
Y ella trabajó con la oficina de la Secretaría del Estado para traducir documentos legales en Hmong, Somali y en español.
In addition to that, the legislator changed the eligibility requirement, which was good news for many small business owners, making it easier for business owners to qualify.
La Secretaría del Estado también cambió los requisitos e hizo las cosas más accesibles para que los pequeños negocios pudieran ser elegibles para esta ayuda de subsidios.
In addition to supporting small business owners, there was also significant support to cultural malls as well.
También hubo apoyo para moles culturales.
This is the kind of work and the kind of change we want to continue carrying out across state agencies with an Office of New Americans.
Este es el tipo de trabajo que queremos continuar con la Oficina de Nuevos Americanos.
Minnesota welcomed over 105,000 new foreign-born residents over the past decade.
Minnesota dio la bienvenida a más de 105,000 inmigrantes a Minnesota.
And according to the 2020 census, about 8% of the state is foreign-born, just over 470,000 people.
Y de acuerdo al censo, aproximadamente 8% de la población ha nacido en otro país.
470,000.
475,000 personas que viven en Minnesota nacieron en otro país.
Immigrant and refugee communities are very resilient. They're adopting new environment, learning the language, and being contributing citizens. It just makes sense to have an office that serves them so they can better build their lives and pave the way for better opportunities and future for all Minnesotans, but also for our newcomers. Thank you.
Amen. You know, this is the kind of work where Anissa and her colleagues were able to just dig into a tricky issue, figure out the barriers, and fix them. And without somebody dedicated to that, without somebody looking out for immigrants in our office, you know, sometimes things pass the radar. So we're thrilled to have Anissa's leadership here. Thrilled to have this panel. We're going to try to keep this as fluid as we can. We've got some translation. We'll minimize that a little bit just to make sure we have time for dialogue, but excited for the conversation today. I'm joined by not only our Assistant Commissioner, but three amazing panelists. We'll do some introductions first and then hear from them about the importance of this issue. We'll start with Assad. Assad from the Neighborhood Development, sorry, I'm just forgetting the New American Development Center. Sorry, Assad, who is a great leader in this community and was formerly a teacher in Eden Prairie, I understand. Assad, introduce yourself to our audience today.
Thank you, Commissioner. My name is Assad Ali Wade. I am the Executive Director and founder of New American Development Center. It's a community-based organization that works with East African immigrant community in terms of economic development and youth development, workforce development.
Let's just do this. All right, next is Ping Vang, who runs Rainbow Healthcare.
Thank you, Commissioner. It's exciting to be here this morning. My name is Peng Vang, and I run a home care agency located in St. Paul. It's been about 20 years, and I run it with my dad and my family.
And then we have Isis, who is one of the business owners and the president of Mercado Central's board.
Hola, buenos días. Otra vez, mi nombre es Isis Gastelum. Actualmente soy la presidenta aquí dentro de Mercado Central. Gracias al comisionado y a DIT porque hemos sido beneficiados por 2 grants y por más grants independientes para negocios.
Isis ¿me escuchan? Isis es la actual presidente de Mercado Central y ella está muy agradecida con DIT porque ha recibido 2 subsidios.
En inglés.
Isis is very thankful to the commissioner. Indeed, she is the current president of Mercado Central, and she has been the recipient of 2 grants.
Well, maybe we'll have you guys use that one. We'll use this one. We'll dive in. I want to recognize Senator Fateh and Jason Chavez, the council member of this district, true champions for this neighborhood as well. Let's give them a round of applause for being here today. Well, Assad, let's start with you, the New American Development Center. You're helping new immigrants succeed here. What are some of the barriers that immigrants typically face when they come to Minnesota and want to start something new?
Thank you, Commissioner. Again, my name is Assad Alawaid. New American Development Center, as I said, is a community development organization. We work on daily basis for the immigrant community issues and challenges as well as the opportunities. So when the new immigrants came to this country, actually is a universal issues that everybody, either you came from Asia, Africa, or Europe, anywhere in the world, there is an issue in language, in culture, in skill sets when it comes to job opportunities, as well as the environment and the weather. All those are universal. But for the specific issues for our East African, especially Somali community, we have a unique issue when we came to this country. We came from a civil war where the entire country has been collapsed. People were fighting death, a refugee camp. Everybody was really in a troubled situation. Immigrants who came from other countries, they may come with education background or some kind of skill sets. But us, we came straight from refugee camp with a zero knowledge of English language in any kind of, how to start a new life in this country. A good example is like if you just go to mainland China, where language and culture, everything is different, and you've been asked to start new life. You will struggle really hard. So we struggle in finding jobs, in housing, in building a new life. All those are really a lot of issues that we faced. But throughout the NDC work that we've been doing, what we have seen for the past 20-some years in the Twin Cities, where a lot of Somalis and East African immigrant community are, especially in the business community, our small business owners really have 3 major challenges to thrive and be a successful business owners in Minnesota, especially the Twin Cities. The first one is a systems challenge, because the government system is in place really is against our a lot of things that we really value. For example, government entities, private entities, even community developers themselves have a misunderstanding about how our community really do businesses. We also have a cultural barriers. For example, we did a New American Development Center and University of Minnesota. We did a survey in 2019, just before the COVID, and we came up with a huge problems really that our community are facing in terms of lending, micro lending. Asking interest-based transaction is really something that's against our culture. So finding a transaction-based, profit-based transaction without interest is something that our community, small businesses really likes to see. The other challenge we also have seen is small businesses, they have a predatory landlords. For example, even some cultural malls, small businesses are there, don't even have leases. Anytime they've been kicked out from the spaces. So in business, in housing, in job development, there is a lot of issues that this community has.
Well, thank you, Assad. Well said. Do you want to summarize that, Magda?
I'll try.
Okay.
Ok, la pregunta fue acerca de los retos que tienen los inmigrantes cuando llegan aquí. Assad mentioned que los retos principales que él encontró fueron de lenguaje, de cultura y de asistencia para comenzar un negocio. En su cultura, la gente, como yo lo entendí, la cultura musulmana no paga interés cuando consiguen un préstamo para conseguir un negocio. Entonces, para él fue difícil encontrar una agencia que se acomodara a las creencias de Islam para conseguir préstamos.
Thank you, Assad. Peng, let's go to you next. You hire a lot of new immigrants in your healthcare business, and you serve a lot of these clients. How would you talk about the new American community here in Minnesota, and what are some unique things that they need to make sure we're optimizing their experience in our job market?
Yes, I do. My employee base is about 99% people of color, and a lot of them are new immigrants, and so they're always very willing to learn and to be trained. I think that as an employer, having patience, giving them the opportunity, helping them through paperwork, questions about a lot of things. I think those are the kind of support that we can give them so that they can do well. So as long as they have the necessary skill sets, and that can always be learned, they do a great job.
La pregunta fue acerca de los nuevos americanos. Your name is Pang. Ella tiene una guardería y dice que el 99% de sus trabajadores son inmigrantes y que siempre están dispuestos a aprender. Mientras tengan las habilidades que el trabajo requiere, siempre hacen un buen trabajo porque son gente que están dispuestas a aprender.
Isis, you've been a very successful business owner here. What has been some of the keys to your success, and how do you think about the role that government should play in helping new businesses in Minnesota grow fast?
Bueno, yo les voy a contar un poquito de historia. Cuando nosotros, bueno, actualmente, pues estoy aquí en Mercado Central. Tengo un pequeño negocio, se llama Pronat. Antes de ser dueña de negocio, ese negocio lo trabajó mi mamá, fue empleada por más de 10 años. Cuando se presentó la oportunidad de convertirse en dueña de ese negocio, decidí apoyarla, pero nos enfrentamos con algunos problemas que nosotros no sabíamos absolutamente nada de cómo abrir un negocio aquí, en Estados Unidos. El idioma era otro obstáculo grande y lo financiero. Prácticamente no teníamos información absolutamente de nada, de cómo abrir un negocio, pero lo que sí teníamos era ganas de abrirlo. En ese momento, el señor Juan Linares fue quien nos apoyó y nos asesoró. Pudimos abrir el negocio, actualmente lo estamos trabajando. Eso fue a partir del 2015, a finales del 2015. Como todo negocio, tuvimos altas y bajas. En el momento, cuando empezó lo de la pandemia, pues no solamente nos afectó a nosotros, sino a muchos negocios en todo el país, en el estado y en esta área de Lake, pues fuimos bastantes los afectados. La mayoría de los negocios cerramos. Eso nos acumuló deudas, tanto en rentas, a proveedores, y para la mayoría de nosotros esto era nuestra única fuente de ingresos. Así que prácticamente no teníamos nada, ni cómo salir de ello. Cuando por fin se dio la orden de que ya se podían reabrir los negocios, todos estábamos emocionados porque, wow, vamos a abrir otra vez el negocio y poco a poco vamos a salir adelante. Pero no. Desafortunadamente, en mayo del 2020 pasó lo del incidente con George Floyd. De ahí vinieron las protestas, los disturbios. La calle Lake fue una de las zonas más afectadas. Y todos lo sabemos, los incendios, los saqueos, los robos, la destrucción, todos quedamos devastados. No solamente nuestra comunidad latina, sino todo el estado. Fue algo que nos devastó, no sabíamos la mayoría cómo íbamos a salir de esto. Apenas pensamos que nos íbamos a recuperar cuando viene esto más fuerte. Fue difícil para todos. En ese momento nosotros pensamos, yo hablando de mi negocio junto con mi madre, yo le digo a mi mamá, demos gracias a Dios porque estamos con vida. Y mientras estemos con vida, aunque nuestro negocio tengamos que cerrarlo, podemos seguir adelante porque estamos juntos. Gracias a DID y a diferentes organizaciones que nos apoyaron, pudimos salir adelante. Pudieron apoyarnos. Nuestro negocio quedó destruido como muchos, vitrinas rotas, mercancía destruida, prácticamente empezamos de cero. Pero con esta ayuda, si nosotros no hubiésemos tenido esta ayuda de DID y de las organizaciones que nos apoyaron para salir adelante, creo que la mayoría no lo hubiéramos logrado y hubiésemos tenido que cerrar nuestros negocios. Por eso nuevamente quiero darles las gracias. Hasta ahorita estamos aquí, por todo el apoyo que nos han dado. También quiero dar las gracias a ANISA y la oficina de New Immigrants por el apoyo proinmigrante. Necesitamos que nos sigan apoyando, necesitamos una oficina, un lugar donde nosotros podamos acudir cuando tengamos que hacer preguntas, porque ese es nuestro obstáculo principal. No tenemos a quien dirigirnos que hable nuestro mismo idioma, con quien entendernos, y no sabemos el proceso que hay que seguir para continuar o para abrir un negocio. Muchas gracias.
Well, the question was about how to be successful. I'm going to try to summarize. She has a small business. It was her mom who started to work as an employee of this business, and they faced several barriers. They didn't have the money. They didn't know the language. The opportunity came up to acquire that business, and they received assistance from Juan Linares, and they started to prosper. But then during the pandemic, they had to close down, and it was devastating because that business was the only source of income. And then in May of 2020, then the riots because of the death of George Floyd started, and Lake Street was one of the most affected places in the city. So they were devastated, and it was not only Latinos who lost their business. It was all the small businesses on Lake Street, and but they have overcome that. Iris is very thankful to God and also to DEED for supporting her, for giving her two grants. And she said that without this help, she would have had to close her business for good. So she's very thankful to DEED. And also she, it's very important for her that DEED continues the work of this office for new Americans, because immigrants need an office they can go to when they have questions. So she is commending the great work that DEED does in opening this office for new Americans.
Well, thank you, Isis. We like to hear that. Thankful to God, indeed, in that order, I'm sure. Well, Anissa, you've been doing this job for a couple of years, and we're being very specific today. We've got a $10 billion surplus in the state government budget, and we're asking for $470,000 to start this office. This is not a massive budget ask. This is, in our minds, a no-brainer. But of course, in the legislature, we have to make the argument for why this should exist. And you've been incubating the office for 2 years, Anissa. Why do we need to make this permanent, and why now? Why is now the moment to get this done?
Thank you, Commissioner. That's really very important question. We have over 19,000 small businesses owned and led by immigrants and refugees in Minnesota. And according to New American Economy, our immigrant and refugee communities paid over $4.28 billion in local, state, and federal taxes. So we're only asking $470,000, but we're spending over $4.8 billion. That means we are contributing to our state's economy. We are making and being part of realizing better Minnesota for all, and most of all, immigrants and refugees. In reality, as an American, if you were to get a degree and decide to work abroad, you wouldn't just go and establish life there. You would prepare to understand the language, the local customs, the traditions, different observations in the community, what kind of jobs, how much it'll pay if you were to establish business. And the same goes for immigrants and refugees seeking better lives because they left their countries, like my family, because of a civil war, because of other unrests, and coming here and being grateful and going through so much of not knowing what's going on here, or the traditions, cultures, customs, even immigration laws. I've seen immigrants and refugee community members, leaders that have been educated abroad, coming here driving Uber, striving to make a difference for their families while abiding the law. So for the 2 years I've been in office, I've been collaborating and partnering with both local, county, and state levels. And I have learned not only the data of what immigrant and refugee communities are contributing to our state, but also if we included them in the conversation, if we created for pathways for them to succeed, what it would mean for our state's growth, what it would mean for our immigrants and refugees that will be coming, and what it would mean for our employers and business development organizations and banks to include our communities, because we're hardworking. We love to make money, but we also want to pay our taxes, right? And establishing this office is extremely important. However, some of the things that have been happening, that have been noticed in Minnesota, is that the local efforts happening that is collaborating with the state. We have Minneapolis and St. Paul offices of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs, led by Michelle Rivero and Edmundo Lijo, who's also the St. Paul City Assistant Attorney, and collaborating and creating platforms that include immigrants and refugee conversations to be connected to both locals and state levels. We have come to the conclusion that if we don't have an office, then we will not really benefit from our community's contribution, both economically and workforce development. DEED has a labor market information office, and it's the only state in our state, Minnesota, that's legislatively required to collect the data, educational attainment, race, ethnicity. And for that matter, we're grateful. But it shows that by 2038, we will have 150,000 additional jobs added to our market. We need our employers to understand how to create welcoming environment for our immigrant workers. We need to create pathways to succeed for our immigrant and community business owners. That's why we're asking to have an office like this. Of course, there is the Gateway for Growth being funded by New American Economy and Welcoming America. That is happening on the local levels. But we have to have a centralized office because we don't want to lose our population, we don't want to lose their businesses, and we certainly don't want to lose their contribution.
Amen to that.
La pregunta es ¿por qué es importante ahora abrir esa oficina? Lo que Anise dice es que hay 19,000, ¿me escuchan? Que hay 19,000 negocios de inmigrantes que pagan 4.8 billones en impuestos. Entonces, por eso es importante. Y la oficina solamente está requiriendo $470,000 para comenzar. O sea, ella no cree que es pedir demasiado. Los inmigrantes y refugiados necesitan ayuda para hacer la diferencia en nuestras comunidades. En Minneapolis y en St. Paul hay oficinas que tratan con asuntos de refugiados, pero ella cree que no es suficiente. Entonces, ella siente que necesita haber caminos para que los dueños de negocios puedan tener una oficina central a donde acudir para que contesten sus preguntas y poder ser mejores contribuyentes a la economía de Minnesota.
Well, thank you. I know we're short on time, so we're going to end with kind of a lightning round if we can. And I'm going to ask each of our three external panelists here, part of our job at DEED is to hear what we're getting right and what we're getting wrong and what government should be doing better for immigrant communities. So I'd like Assad, Peng, Isis, tell us the one thing you think government should be doing better for immigrant communities in our state. And we'll keep these kind of short just to finish off our conversation today.
Thank you. I think one thing that the government is doing better, should do better, is that, first of all, thank you, Anissa, for making this great presentation about the new office. I think this office will be a bridge between the government and the New Americans. City of Minneapolis created Office of Immigrants and Refugees in 2019. I was one of the hiring panel, and I know how that office is beneficial to a lot of immigrants and refugees in Minneapolis. This way level up to the state level. I think the state agency, especially first of all, DEED. I was a community development organization. We had a very small access to DEED before 2019, really. Since you guys came in, there has been grants. The COVID opened a lot of things, but there has been access actually to us, to this DEED agency, which we never had before. As a small organizations, immigrant organizations, we've been working with a mainstream community developers. So grants and access was going to those organizations, and we are doing the groundwork. Now it's a little bit different than that. So congratulations on that. Thank you. That's something good that you already have done. But I think this office will create an opportunity. Immigrants and refugees are the synergy of the backbone of the economy, the civilization. They bring talents and new blood to the economy and to the well-being of Americans. So I think this office will be one of the great additions that the state of Minnesota government should do. Thank you.
Thank you, Assad. Peng, we'll go to you next. What should government be doing that we aren't when it comes to this community?
I think in trying to answer that question, I think about back when 20 years ago when my dad and I started our business and what we needed to succeed. I think that the government can do a better job of helping businesses bid for government contracts. I think that taking the time, something that this Office of New Americans can do is taking the time to give small businesses more time to fulfill the requirements in the RFP bids is important. I think that when they're trying to pull resources, they don't know where to pull resources in order to answer those RFPs. So that's something that the government can do and help. I know that continued support is important. So once you get a government bid or a contract, in looking at all the questions that we helped with during COVID, I would say that being responsible, knowing what the laws are, that kind of continued support is important for a business to stay viable and for it to long-term and keep on hiring and offering new opportunities for people to work is very important. Many times, the immigrant new businesses will start and they do a great job at starting and then they don't know where to go from there. So I think those kind of supports would be important and necessary.
What can government be doing better, Isis?
Yo pienso que debería haber más acceso a información, a oficinas en nuestro idioma, porque la mayoría de las personas, nosotros los inmigrantes latinos, pensamos que no hay opciones para nosotros en muchas ocasiones. Y sí sería bueno que crearan más diversidad para las pequeñas culturas. Las personas que somos minoría, que hubiera algo en nuestro idioma que nos puedan ayudar, apoyar, asesorar para cualquier trámite necesario, para poder un poco más de apoyos en asesoría financiera de negocios, clases, no sé, cualquier cosa que pueda beneficiarnos, porque ese es nuestro principal problema, que no tenemos información en nuestro idioma y pues lo financiero, a veces no sabemos de qué manera podemos obtener ayuda. Gracias.
You want me to try to summarize?
Maybe just summarize her answer and then we'll...
Oh, okay. So the question is how, what can the government do better? And Iris, la respuesta de Isis es que debe haber más recursos.
In English.
I'm sorry. Okay. The question was, what can the government do better? And what Isis says is that her opinion is that we need more resources in our own language because sometimes we don't know what to do. So basically more cultural resources and more resources in our own language.
How about a round of applause for our translator today, Magda, making it happen.
Sorry.
Before we wrap, we're joined by a state senator today, Senator Fata, who represents this district very well. And since this is a state issue, we're trying to get this done in the legislature. I thought I'd hand him the microphone just to reflect on this topic. Senator?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much for giving me a moment to speak. I'll try to keep it brief. I want to first thank all of you for coming out into my district, but also Councilman Jason's ward this afternoon to speak about an important issue that's important to both of us as well. And I want to thank all of you all for taking the time and engaging with our leaders at the state and local level right now. One thing that I would like to touch on very briefly is what can we do better in terms of myself at the state level, but also locally. I got elected during the COVID pandemic, 2020, August 2020, or November 2020, I should say. And in speaking with folks throughout the district, some of the things I heard was that there's a lot of COVID relief for our existing businesses, but there's also a lot of businesses that were just starting right when the pandemic hit, right? And they got locked into a lease, they bought equipment, they had a lot of expenses, not expecting COVID to happen. And when COVID hit, they felt left in the dark because to qualify for a lot of the grants or loans, there was a lot of requirements, like you need 2 years of revenue, display 2 years of revenue, for example, things like that, and they were brand new. So moving forward, one thing that I would like to see and that I would like to work on and partner with you all is that how will we help our startup businesses also, not just our existing businesses, but our communities or our immigrant businesses that want to not just start up here, but hire people from here also, hire locally. And Anissa gave the statistics, how much money we contribute to the state. We can do a lot more also on top of that if we just give them the access and opportunities. So that's one thing I would like to work on with you. Thank you.
Agree 100%. Thank you, Senator. Well, I know we're at the end of our time. A few of us are going to take a tour. I want to thank Mariano and Maureen Ramirez and the newest member of our DEED team, Nima Hussein. Nima, you want to give a hello? She just joined DEED. She's going to be working with this community a lot. Let's give her a round of applause. Let's get this done, everybody. We want to land this money to build this office, to strengthen those bridges between government and immigrant communities. It takes the voices of all of you to make it happen. I believe Nima is going to pass out a handout that shows you what you can do to put the pressure on our legislators and others to make this a priority at a very busy time in the legislature, that this office must be established. We think it's central to DEED's future, to our state's future. It's both the right thing to do and it's the smart thing to do in our economy. So I'm going to turn to my colleague, Anissa Haji Mumin, the founding mother of this effort, who's been such a powerful force for us at DEED. And Anissa, I'll hand the mic to you to offer some final thoughts.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. And thank you so much for being here with us today. Please reach out to the community leaders, advocates, and members. And Nima Hussein is there and distributing the contact information. But please urge the Senate to pass this bill, because we really depend on it, all of us. Thank you so much. And we're going to start the tour in Mercado Central. Mario will be leading the tour. Mariano, he's way in the back with the yellow sweater. Okay, Mariano, could you please lead the way, and we'll follow you. Thank you so much. All right.